I'm Stephanie Filardi. Welcome to Mind the Gap, the podcast. I believe many people fall short of living the life of their dreams simply because they get stuck in what I call the gap. The vision behind this podcast is to help you understand how to navigate the gap and in the process, awaken to the life that is waiting for you. It starts now. Let's go. Welcome, friends. Thank you for joining. We'll begin with our 3 conscious breaths. Now take a moment to feel your body, feel your toes, and inhale, filling up. Exhale slowly out of the mouth, release, let go. Inhale, filling up, drawing the breath in. Exhale, release and soften something, maybe the jaw, maybe the shoulders. And one more time, inhale, filling up. Exhale, sweet release, surrender the breath, let it go. So in today's episode, we'll be talking about spiritual awakening. And what I have to say about that, be grateful for sleepless nights because they help us awaken. What do I mean by that? Oh, so this is another juicy topic. Anytime we put the word spiritual anywhere, there's always lots of conversation about what it means. So let me right off the bat clarify what I mean by spiritual. And I mean anything that connects you to yourself and connects you to life beyond yourself, the bigger picture, if you will. So some people express spirituality in a religious way and through other practices. So whatever works for you. My definition of spirituality is anything that brings you closer to yourself and closer to the world at large. So something I want to share about the process of spiritual awakening. And let me back up. Let me not assume that you know what I mean when I say awakening. When I use the word awakening, it is about waking up to your life. And oftentimes it is about waking up to happiness. And many times we wake up because we're not happy. We either realize one day, wow, this isn't the life I imagined for myself, or maybe things have happened, right? We've experienced a trauma of some type, a loss of some type. So this conversation around spiritual awakening, my intention is to help you put some parameters and anchors around it because I find that it's a fairly large topic and can be very philosophical. And it's really about landing the concepts and living our life. So let me share something with you that I've learned and I remind myself of that I learned with some of my trainings with Eckhart Tolle. And he likes to say, life isn't here to make you happy. It is here to make you conscious. Conscious also meaning to wake you up. Right? So when I hear that, life isn't here to make you happy. It is here to make you conscious or to wake you up. Life can be everything, right? So our job, our relationships, right? All of those things that sometimes we think will bring us happiness. And then when they don't, we think that maybe we're in the wrong job or maybe we're in the wrong relationship. And sometimes we are, but many times we're actually not. Many times it's really about looking at a situation through different eyes. And that happens when we start to awaken, when we start to learn about ourselves, and we start to recognize that perhaps what once was very satisfying and fulfilling is no longer. So in this process of waking up, otherwise known as transformation, there's a couple of things that I want to share that are important. So some of you might be already on the path. I suspect if you're listening to this podcast that you are, and that's why you're listening to it. And we're all at different points in our journey. So my intention is to give you a few concepts or tools to help you navigate this process of awakening wherever you are. So the first thing is some foundations. So what starts to happen when we find ourselves in a situation that is making us unhappy? And as I mentioned, sometimes it's unhappy because of how we're viewing it, but sometimes it legitimately no longer works. So I'll give you an example. Let's use the career example, right? There's many people now that as people are waking up, they're waking up to perhaps careers or jobs that they don't like, that aren't meaningful. So there's this search for meaning, right? All of us are searching for meaning. We're at a time and space where we have the luxury, right? Because we're not in survival mode, many of us. We have the time and space to, go to yoga, go to meditation, get the energy healing, go on retreats, right? All that stuff. Get hypnotized and do all those holistic treatments. So we're at a point where many of us are waking up. And what happens when we wake up is sometimes we say that this life doesn't fit me. So as we start to wake up and realize that maybe this one aspect, let's say this job, no longer fits me, how do we live our current life at the same time as recognizing that this no longer fits, right? There's almost like a conflict because we say, wait a second, this job is no longer fulfilling. I want to do something that's meaningful. I want to start my own business. But we still have to wake up and go to that job, right? So something that's very real when we start to awaken spiritually is that we have this, sometimes we say to ourselves, what's happening to me? So I'm here to reassure you that it's very normal. It's very normal to have that sentiment and recognize that, like everything else in life, it's a process. So we still have to go about our current life, which leads me to the next point, which is, and I've talked about this in the previous episode on meditation, is that even though we are shifting our consciousness, we're awakening, right? And it maybe isn't matching exactly what's on the inside, right? Where we want to go to what's currently on the outside. We have to be able to access that place of inner peace and stillness. Because when we're able to access that place of inner stillness and peace, what ends up happening is we're able to really balance out what we are currently living, right? Our current day-to-day things that we have to do, tasks that have to get done, to where we're going, who we're becoming. So I often use the word the form and the formless in this sense. So the form is the stuff that we do on a daily basis. We have to eat, we have to sleep, we go to work, right? It's all that stuff that we have to do to take care of this physical being. The formless is the part of us that is pure awareness or consciousness. It's the place where we say, this is who I'm becoming. It's our imagination, right? It's the dimension that isn't necessarily tangible. Some people call it the unseen. So part of this process of spiritual awakening, when we get woken up at 3 a.m. and we can't go back to sleep, that's an indication that we are awakening. And what do I mean by that? Well, if we're not sleeping, unless we've had way too much caffeine and sugar, there's something that's trying to come through, right? There's something that's not aligned. There's something that's eating at us. And it's not stress. Stress is a result of something that is out of alignment. So this is an important concept. So I'm going to say that again. If you are waking up in the middle of the night, you are sleepless, it's because something within you is awakening. And the sleeplessness that happens because we're not dealing with it. We're not dealing with it in the hours of the day, in our daylight. So we go about our day, we stuff it down, we stay busy, we do whatever we do, right? And then in the middle of the night, when the body's trying to rest, it's like, hi, I'm here. Knock, knock, right? And I've been there. It happens to me. And when it happens to me, I will say this, in the past, I used to resist it. Because I love my sleep. And when I don't sleep, I am not in a good mood. So I used to resist it. And now I've learned that when I'm not sleeping, Usually, it's something that's bothering me. So I try not to resist it. Many times I get up, I write, I'll meditate, maybe I'll read something that's inspiring, and 98% of the time, I have a sleepless night. There is something that comes through. There's a realization, there's a project, there's something that comes through that for whatever reason during the day simply could not. So when we start to awaken, sometimes we have sleepless nights. And if we are having sleepless nights every single night, we have to stop and say why. We have to stop and say why. So what do we do? What do we do when we recognize that we're awakening and that we're questioning? Maybe we don't have the answers yet on if this life still fits, whatever that means, right? Our health, our relationships, our career, the foundations, right? This life doesn't fit. Maybe we're not sure. Maybe we're searching. Maybe we're in the questions and we don't have the answers. And that's okay to be in that space. So just recognize that it's normal to have the question of what's happening to me in those moments of transition, those moments when we're in the gap. It feels like maybe we're in the dark or we're in the unknown. Maybe we feel lonely. Maybe we feel that we don't even know who we are anymore. And that's normal. Maybe we feel like there's this part of us that's dying because guess what? When you awaken, something is dying because there's something that's wanting to be born. And that is the cycle of life, right? Creation and generation, creation and destruction. That's what happens. It's the cycle of life. So understand that part of awakening spiritually, in order to do it in a way that doesn't cause, more drama, let's say, for ourselves, is to understand and to accept that as we integrate this shift in consciousness or awareness into our current life, that it's important to find the practices, again, I'll say it, meditation, to cultivate that stillness so that we can balance out the life that we're living and also the life that we're moving into, so to speak. And sometimes it doesn't mean that there's going to be any changes in, let's say, a job or a relationship. Sometimes it's the change of perspective. And maybe we have a newfound gratitude, or maybe we have a newfound appreciation or an awareness for somebody. So it's a really powerful practice. The other thing I want to say as it relates to awakening spiritually is that, what the things that you can do is that you can actually look at your life as the spiritual practice. Right? That's the practice, right? So it's wonderful to, go up on the mountain and go on the yoga retreat and get all this wisdom and be around other people who are, peaceful and blissful and nobody's bothering you, right? I've done it, believe me. And I've stayed there a long time. And there were times I didn't want to come back, but I did because I know my work in the world is to come back and to share it when I was ready. So using the practices, using the tools in our everyday living, in our everyday conversations, in the world, right? In this world of form is important, and we can make our life a spiritual practice, right? When we have the tools and we get the support with meditation, we're able to do that. So we're stabilizing presence. We're stabilizing our ability to be the witness in our life. So just like we talked about in meditation, when we're sitting and we're meditating and we're focusing on our breath and the thoughts are coming in and the emotions are coming up, we don't have to dive headfirst into them. We can witness them. And so true with our life, right? We can witness it and we can say, isn't that interesting? Do I need to change that? Does that external thing need to change? Or is it an internal change? Because I promise you, when you change internally, the externally will follow. And sometimes it follows in the case of form, like I said, where something ends or there's a new beginning. And sometimes it simply changes in that our relationship to it, in the formless dimension, how we feel about it changes. Very powerful. The last thing I'm going to say is, as you're going through this awakening and you're recognizing and accepting and integrating the shift in consciousness and cultivating your stillness practice of meditation, give yourself space. This is the opportunity to give yourself space. What do I mean by that? If there are things that are not essential to do, stop doing them. When you create more space in your life, you create more space for the things that you want to come through. It's also a fantastic time to spend time in nature, so connecting with the elements, so really finding ways to stabilize yourself and your ability to stay present as you awaken. It's important. It's an ally. So a couple more things before I close is, why bother, right? Like, why do we even care about spiritual awakening? And as I've said before, some of us are forced into it because we have so much pain and suffering that the pain and suffering wakes us up, and we decide that in order to live, I need to learn, right? And that's what spiritual awakening is. There is no growth without some level of discomfort. And some of us who are in extreme discomfort have a huge upside, quite frankly, to awakening. And that's not everybody. There are plenty of people walking the planet. I meet them every day. I'm fascinated by them, where they're happy-go-lucky. Everything's great. And that's awesome. For those of us where that's not the case, and we wake up and we have to get our head on right before we can address the day and feel good, these are the people I'm talking to, and that's myself. So why bother? Why bother with this process if we don't have something traumatic to wake us up? Or maybe we do. Maybe something woke us up and we're off the path again. It's because when we stop living in survival mode, in trying to get our perceived needs met, right? And trying to avoid situations that we think cause us harm or trigger us, right? Then we free up that energy to thrive. And we start to have the necessary vital energy to live our life, right? So when you look at someone who's surviving, and then you look at someone who's thriving, there's a huge difference in how they carry themselves and how they look in being around them. And I'm not, with all due respect, I say survival mode. Sometimes we are in survival mode. So this isn't a judgment about that. I've been there. And I'll be there again, I suspect, because that's part of life. But the point is to say, what's the point of doing this work? What's the point of sitting with this and trying to, integrate who I'm becoming to where I am today? It's because the benefit of it is it frees up your energy. It gives you clarity. It gives you peace. It gives you joy. And perhaps more importantly, it allows us to enjoy our life. Because why else are we here? And I don't mean to enjoy our life from a gluttonous, selfish, greedy way. I mean enjoying our life, whatever that looks like, right? Instead of it being a drain or exhausting, we are enjoying. Nothing makes me sadder when I talk to somebody who is middle-aged and I'm having a conversation of health with them, right? So maybe we're talking about food or vitamins or meditation or yoga, something health-related. And I say to them, don't you want to live a long, healthy life? I'm assuming that they do, which is incorrect. I should not assume, right? Thou shalt not assume. And they say, no, I don't want to live long. And I'm like, well, I guess if you're feeling like you're always in survival mode, yeah, why would you want to live a long life? But that's not the way that I have to go about life, or I want to go about life. I want to go about life that I want to live it to the fullest and feel wonderful as much as I can, because we know there will be dark days. We know there will be hard days. We know that's part of life. Challenges are part of life. But if we go through life and we're not excited and we, don't have any sort of skin in the game to be healthy or to take care of ourselves because we don't want to live long, that's kind of a depressing way to live, in my opinion. So having said that, yes, in our life, sometimes we are going through the process of awakening, and sometimes it's more intense, sometimes it's less intense. My feeling is that we're always growing and changing and awakening. It's just a matter of degrees, right? And how much. And as we use the tools and as we see this opportunity to awaken as an opportunity to enjoy our life, I feel that it helps make it a lot easier. So that when we're in the gaps, in the transitions of life, in the moments where we are awakening and we see ourselves in one space, but we're not there yet where we, quote, want to go, that we have an opportunity to enjoy that space, to learn about ourselves, and to enjoy all of it, to enjoy the spaces where we're moving and shaking, to enjoy the spaces where we're unsure, to enjoy all of it, because we know how to navigate it, because we have these tools and we have the support. So one final thing I want to leave you with as it relates to this topic of spiritual awakening is I have mentioned before that in the area of relationships, this is a fantastic playground to awaken and to apply some of these principles, right? And recently I was at a wedding and the minister said something that really struck me. And I'm going to call it a pointer or something useful that I will continue to remind myself of. And he said to the couple that he was marrying, you're going to have challenging times. right? I mean, that's just what it is. That's part of life, right? You don't get into a relationship and expect not to have challenges, right? And he said, I want to remind you that when those challenges come up, instead of working on the quote relationship, work on yourself. Work on yourself. Now, he didn't explain why. Here's my sense. When you work on yourself and you commit to awakening and to becoming aware of your thought patterns, your beliefs, your behaviors, your triggers, the places where you get stuck, and you work on those, you will access a deeper truth and connection with yourself that will guide you in the direction you need to go. You don't need to worry about the other person. You need to focus on yourself. So instead of working on the relationship, work on yourself first. And I promise you, you will show up differently. You will show up differently. So having said that, let's close by taking a closing breath. That was a lot, perhaps, for some of you. So take a breath in through the nose. And when you're ready to let it go, just let it go with a sigh. And remember, be grateful for the sleepless nights because they help us awaken. Let's go.